Today on Metcast, I'm going to give you the latest in regard to Tariq Skubal and another ace-type pitcher that just became available. Our friend Will Salmon is going to break it down next on Metcast. Welcome back to the channel, Mets fans. Always, I am Rain. If you're enjoying this content, all I ask you to do is like, subscribe, consider becoming a member so you can chime in and get your comments and questions read live on air, whether it's with Dan and myself or when we have guests on. And yes, I want to get to the latest update in regard to Tariq Skubal. You saw the report out there from John Heyman that they're roughly $250 million apart, which is a big gap, but I don't want people to say like, oh, that's insurmountable, because it's simply not insurmountable. If we're being honest with ourselves here, you have a Tariq Skubal who is clearly the best pitcher in the game. What does that relate to? Remember this past offseason with Vladdy Guerrero Jr., there was supposedly $100+ million gap between him and the Toronto Blue Jays, and they ended up making that work out. And I also want to reiterate this. Detroit is an organization that typically will pay, especially their own guys in the past. Remember, they traded for Miguel Cabrera, gave him a massive contract. They went out and signed Baez just a couple seasons ago. So they have spent where they want to. And I know Scott Boras is probably asking for the absolute moon. And yes, for anybody who doesn't know, Scott Boras is Tariq Skubal's agent, so he's going to want to get the most. You are trading for a one-year player. So that's why I want to get to Will Salmon over on SNY. He is very respected throughout all of MLB for The Athletic and his opinions on the situation, the latest. Let's get into it.
That the Mets be one of those teams who are interested 100%. Now, the crux of the issue for me, the heart of the issue would be, do they look at that and say to themselves, okay, we are all in on what it would take to get Skubal, or do we operate a tier lower maybe? And maybe we look at somebody like a Freddie Peralta type.
And that's the breaking news as of today. Just a few minutes ago, it broke over on X that the Brewers will be listening in on Peralta. They know they're not going to sign him long-term. And with the looming lockout, I could see a lot of players be on the move, because if you don't think you're going to win next year, which I'm not totally sold Detroit is, or the Brewers, I mean, we just watched what happened to the Brewers with LA. Maybe they say, let's get off these guys now, because if there's a lockout in 27, they're another year older after that, and it could really hurt them going down the line. So while their stock is so high, that's where you got to capitalize. So we got that just a few minutes ago. And Peralta is a guy with a mid-2 ERA, top of the rotation, would be the Mets ace, no doubt. You got to look at LA. That's the team everybody's chasing. We could say the Phillies, the Braves, they'll be back next year. Milwaukee. What LA is doing is insurmountable. And they're doing it with crazy good bats, but also pitching. Look what Blake Snell has done for them. You got to have great pitching. And you're only going to win if you have these elite guys. Everyone keeps pointing to last year and what the Yankees did with LA, and LA winning with a bullpen. That is the anomaly, not the rule. And you base building a team off the rule.
Who's going to cost you a little bit less, but he's also not as good as Skubal.
Right.
So that's,
True.
I think, the equation that they're going to have to sort through. I do expect them to be in it. I don't know how much they're going to be in it if he is available. It kind of reminds me of the Corbin Burns trade that the Brewers made a couple of years ago, because he was coming off another great season.
And if you remember, Burns didn't go for an absolute ton. People were a little surprised.
Burns-esque season. Scott Boras' client like Skubal, but the Brewers had to make that trade, and it only cost them, the Orioles, DL Hall and Joey Ortiz. So I asked around the league, I said, okay, what do you make of this? Do you think that it could be kind of similar? The answer was no. The answer was actually no. It's going to cost them a little bit more than that, just because there aren't that many free agent pitchers this time around. So I think it's going to be a huge conversation the rest of the winter, perhaps in a way that, we didn't really expect maybe 2 weeks ago.
And I want to reiterate one thing. The Mets, if you're going to make this move for Skubal, you have to make major subsequent moves, because it's an all-in year. He's not going to be signing the extension. I will say, I would be utterly shocked if Tariq Skubal were to sign an actual extension prior to going to free agency. That's why you hire Scott Boras as your agent, absolute most that you can. And Wandy Peralta might be a great fallback option. You might not have to give up two of your top pitchers. I mean, you're talking either, obviously, no one wants to give up McLean. So you're talking potentially Tongue, Sproat, and other guys. Peralta might not cost you any of those top end pitchers, but maybe some guys who are coming through, maybe the Jonathan Santucci, the Weddingers, those types of prospects instead of those higher end pitchers, which I know a lot of Met fans don't want to hear. I want Skubal. I'm tired of going after the second tier guy, but this is what happens when the free agent pitching that was supposed to be good is not as good as we expected it to be. You saw Michael King struggle at the end of the season. Dylan Cease had a fall apart year. A lot of these guys who were expecting to get top end dollar coming in through this past offseason are simply not going to this year. Now, if you're telling me you're going to pair a Peralta and then go sign a Michael King, this transforms this rotation as long as you could keep those three pitchers. But that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Like and subscribe. And until next time, let's go Mets. God bless.